What is going on, Sales Dev Squad? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sales Dev Squad podcast. It's your host, MAteo. Elvira here, back with a special episode. One of my good friends who I had the pleasure of working with at the V12 Sales Engine, the unicorn startup based out of Glendale, California, helping HVAC, plumbing, electrical shops, both commercial and residential businesses scale, find growth, adopt technology, and transform their business. Mr. Nick Kim, who's currently a BDR over at ServiceTitan. And Nick, thanks so much for joining us today, man. You're looking great. I love the view in the back. How are you?
Hey, Mateo. How are you? Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here, dude.
Dude, I gotta say, man, like, I know we just connected, like, we had like a similar chat about a week ago, and you really
hmm
inspired me, man. It's crazy that like
Awesome, dude.
that. I guess like for starters, man, like for anyone listening out there who may not, have come across you yet, like in a nutshell, like who is Nick Kim? Like, how did you like get into sales?
Yeah. Good question. As Mateo mentioned, I'm in a SDR, BDR role at ServiceTitan. ServiceTitan is a vertical software to, SaaS, in the vertical software space. We cater to, home service businesses like I said, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, so on and so forth. Um, so first question, how I got into sales. It's actually a funny story. So out of college a few years ago, I, just like a lot of people, I had a hard time finding, like the right job or a good job or even a job, right? So, long story short, I went through a lot of interviews, had my first job out of college in marketing and branding. And it was like a temporary gig, so it didn't really pan out for me, but, although I really enjoyed it, but didn't work out for me. And after that, fast forward maybe a few months of like, more interviews, a lot of, phone screens on sites, a lot of driving back and forth. Um, this guy on LinkedIn, sales recruiter reached out to me. He's like, hey, like, we're hiring X, Y, and Z. Think you could be a decent fit, on the chat. Okay, sure, And at this point, I'm desperate. So I don't know shit about sales. I never had a professional sales experience, prior to this call. I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. I need a job, right? Um, did the phone screen. The recruiter goes, hey, you sound very smart and capable, but you just don't sound great on the phone, to be honest. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I feel like you know your stuff and you seem like a quick learner, but you don't have a lot of energy on the phone, and you just don't sound like a good conversation driver. And for most of the people that are listening or watching, if they know me now, they'd be like, wait, what? Like they would totally disagree, right? So that's essentially how I got started, and it went through the interview process, got started in full cycle, and it wasn't even software then. My first sales gig was in commercial financing, equipment financing. So, straight up full cycle from start to finish, prospecting, and all on the phone, sending DocuSign and whatnot. But yeah, that's essentially how I got started. And I didn't have that job too long, but definitely learned a lot about, driving conversation, just like learning how to read the room. And especially like the beauty of inside sales, I think, is it's like good and bad, right? Like, and outside and field sales, like you have the body language, like, and if you show up at a door, typically people can't hang up on you, right? So you can kind of have a conversation going that way. But I learned a lot there. And, fast forward a couple of years, went through a couple of SaaS, BDR, SDR roles, and, here we are at ServiceTitan.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And I guess for anyone who like doesn't know like like who you guys sell to, like at ServiceTitan, you guys are not usually targeting like a typical B2B or a B2G. Like, could you walk me through like who you guys have conversation? They're very interesting
Yeah,
people. They're very
yeah.
unique, and I guess on top of that, like, did that industry or the trades teach you anything differently about sales that you didn't know before?
Yeah, totally. So for first timers, again, Service Titan, is a business management software for home service businesses. So, the team that I'm on, I typically talk to mostly, shops that do residential focus work. So typically my prospects sell to, you guys, right? Like homeowners or anybody that need, service done, whether it's an AC unit, plumbing job, etc. But as far as looking through my lens as a, SDR, BDR, sales professional, selling to these guys, trying to get to know these guys, it's a very specific industry. And the personas you get, yeah, like you said, like, cause like you're in ed tech, right? So it's completely
Totally.
like, yeah, and you've done both. So you kind of get it, but just for the audience, it's, when I first started, it was tough because it's not like, so on paper, right? Like these guys are business owners,
Yep.
executives and whatnot.
Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, entrepreneurs, presidents, right? But say, you're calling into a smaller outfit, and chances are most of these guys are owner operators, meaning, they gotta do the job and they're into trenches like us, salespeople, and also be back in the office, go over the numbers, make sure it's a profitable business, etc. So they have a lot going on, and like, um, another thing that I learned too, they're just like very good. They're good people, very hardworking. So, uh, looking from like my perspective, like you really kind of have to get to know them. One, get to know them, right? And as people, like who are they? Like, what kind of beer do they like? What do they watch? Like sports, right? You really want to think about that. Like put yourself in their shoes, because like look at me, right? Like when am I gonna talk to these people on a day to day, unless like because of this job, like kind of got that opportunity. And yeah, it just, I knew nothing about the industry. I knew nothing about contractors prior to working at Service Titan, but it is definitely an underserved market. And I'm really happy to be a part of a team that is an industry leader, and we're forever changing their lives and their businesses. So
Mhm.
yeah, circling back to it, it's such an interesting space, right? Because like I think being a Service Titan and having somewhat success here, like there's a difference between being a good salesperson, right? Being a top performer at a B2B software company,
B2B, yeah.
yeah, versus being good at Service Titan. So you definitely have to put in I definitely have to put in the time, to learn the industry, listen to a lot of like, old calls by senior reps, and even like I really appreciated that I got to go to these like trade shows and conferences pre-COVID. Um, that kind of experience is like doing like a ride along, with anybody, like, and that's a, I don't know, let's say like even like my prospects, right? Like if I did a ride along with the in a plumbing shop owner or HVAC shop owner, like that's gonna be huge value to me, because I only know based on like calls and demos that I watch. But if I'm actually meeting these guys, which I did at these trade shows, and if I'm actually seeing what they go through day to day, like the real pains and how much value we can actually bring from this, piece of software, that is like tremendous value. So I know I'm kind of like going, but to sum it up, yeah, any industry you're in, any specific industry you serve, you have to get to know them. Because I think in a big picture, it comes down to when you truly want to be a good salesperson and say be a consistent top performer. I think it's typically three things: one, customer; uh, two, product; and three, competitors. Right. So start with your customers, get to know them, get to know the industry, whether you have to read like the industry blogs or even listen to like podcasts. That's one of my favorite ways to like learn, because like I can just kind of have it in my ears, do some admin stuff or boring stuff, or even go on a walk, run, whatever. So yeah, so it's definitely a niche market,
Yeah.
to answer your question.
No, man. I mean, just to kind of sum it up for our audience here, like it's so hard, guys. Like calling into contractors.
Yeah, you've done the job.
I did it for 10 months, 11 months. Nick's been doing it for 2+ years, and I mean, it takes a certain level of grit. It takes a certain level of like just mental toughness because you're literally
Yeah,
cold calling people who are like trying to get after it, but they're on a roof or maybe like they're in an attic or like it's just like
for sure.
absolutely crazy. And so I feel like it, you really, in order to be successful, especially where you're at, you need to have like a really committed attitude and a really committed mindset. And like, how have you been able to do well when obviously like there's people that aren't up for the challenge or can't do it, or not, like what has been that secret ingredient for you to still find success 2 years later doing this?
Yeah, I wouldn't, call it my secret sauce or whatever, but I will say this though, right? I think for me, um, I think a couple things. I think everything for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but everything for me, it starts with pure desire, right? So my thing is not even just like in professional experience, but like as a person, as an adult, right? Like if I want something, I typically like say I like to work backwards. Okay, like what is it actually going to take for me to get there? But it also starts with pure desire because if you don't have the desire, if you simply don't want to do something, it's gonna feel like just like work, boring, and I feel like I'm being forced to do this. So it always starts with pure desire for me. So and how I got there, um, I think I kind of touched on this the last couple conversations with MAteo, right? I mean, like you have to like look at the bigger picture. So for example, like myself, I think eventually I want to be in a place where I can be a great sales leader or any sort of leader that could lead a team, uh, you know be in a place to inspire others, one person at a time. So for me to do that, I figure, okay, at least like the current role that I'm in, I need to crush it. I have to crush it. There is no other option. So that's my desire. So I already want that. And two, tying it back with like having a good mindset and good attitude. I tell some of the reps that I've been, training, right? It like I think that's like almost like half
It's
or even
important, right?
yeah, more than half the job because like if you're starting your day and I typically work East Coast hours and I'm on the West Coast. So I typically get up, a little early, like 6:30. And when I'm starting, excuse me, I really have to have a good mindset and good attitude. Hey, like I'm gonna have a great day, and the way I'm gonna have a great day, I'm gonna put in the work. And it's like the quote, I think, MJ, uh, Michael Jordan said it. Um, it was something I don't know the quote verbatim, but it was something um, like great work ethic eliminates fear. And I heard that I think on his documentary, like The Last Dance.
Hmm.
I was like, man, like that is so true. Like one should put in so much work. One should, really put in the work, you know, by perfecting your craft or at least trying to. Like there is no reason for you to have that fear when you're prospecting and when you're making this cold calls because like one, like you've already done the role plays, you've already done the homework, you've already done the research, and two, you've had so many of these calls, so there's no fear. Like I mean, worst thing that could happen on a cold call is like the prospect says no to your meeting, right? So for me, I mean, yeah, again, it starts with like pure desire to want to do well, want to get better, one to just like be more well-rounded as a sales professional, and two, like just having a good mindset and attitude. I think that's a choice. I think in life there's going to be a lot of things, whether it's accidents or bad timing with like career choices, opportunities, whatever you call it. But I think at the end of the day, we are still the architects of our lives, right? So I think we still get to make the choice to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to focus on these calls, or I'm going to at least focus on having good conversation with the decision makers, right? So having a good attitude and starting your day that way, I think just keeps me grounded and focused. Okay, like I'm going to try to do these instead of, I mean, you know, like not to like say anything bad, but I know some reps would, because, you know, it's like COVID and working from home. I know like some reps would barely get out of bed or like even make calls like in bed. Like I couldn't do that because I physically,
You have a higher standard for yourself.
absolutely, I do have high standards for myself, and I physically have to, you know, I really, uh, I'm a firm believer in like physical environments like affecting me, and I also have control over that. So of course, like, you know, if we were back in the office, I like that because, like, you know, I physically, you know, take myself to the office. I'm in that work mode. I'm in the grind, like focus mode. But even at home, like, you know, I physically built my guest room into an office. So I have my office desk. I have my whole setup here. And once I step into this room, then like I know what I'm doing. So little things like that, I think, help me, you know, stay focused and have a good mindset, you know, day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I gotta share this with our viewers because this was insane. So Nick and I, we chatted like last week, and I wasn't doing so hot. And I wanted to pick his brain because this guy has a killer mindset. He's always sending me DMs on IG saying like, "Stay locked in." He's always locked in.
Stay
And
locked in, baby.
I asked him like, what is the secret, dude? I haven't been doing well, and he basically just said what he just said is just like it's all mindset, and it's all like giving it your all and showing up and staying focused every single day. And from that moment forward, I was able to book a bunch of meetings like literally the next day, and it's made sense to me now after you sharing that with me.
Yeah,
But like
that's
it's
awesome.
all mindset, dude. So like for you, like any like I know that you mentioned that like we're almost like athletes. Like how do you apply what you
Yeah,
do to like LeBron or like AD? Like what are some
totally.
similarities you can draw from that?
Yeah. And like for those of you who do not know me, I'll never say I'm a true Laker fan, but I am a fan of greatness. So I mean, I look up to these guys, right? You know, like, you know, Kobe Bryant, MJ, LeBron now, because I think he's been doing it, and he's so consistent and he's the best at it, right? So yeah, I really like that analogy because I don't know, like it always like made sense to me where like sales is a pure competitive sport, right? You know, whether it be competing with yourself to get better and like crush and um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like break your own records, right? And which I have done, and it just feels great because it's almost like testing like your limits and possibilities. Like, okay, like I did this one time, can I do more of that? Like, or is it possible? If it is, like, how do I get there, right? But um, you know, in a nutshell, like the reason why I like to like see us as like athletes, it's like we're doing tough work, not so much physical, like, you know, like NFL, NBA stars, but mentally this is draining, right? I mean, like sometimes physical too, because like some of the calls and like demos like we do, it's like half an hour, 1 hour, and you have multiple of those every single day. So it's, you know, physically and mentally draining. But I think one of the things that I really like is I really like I follow and listen to this guy. His name's Trevor Moad, and I mean shout out to Trevor because I really learned a lot from him, just like listening to like some of like the interviews, the podcasts, and his book. And his thing is like one of his slogans, like what it takes, what it takes, right? So, for example, like you put myself and MAteo in the same room, and we're given a list of like 100, you know, accounts, prospects. It may take myself 200 calls to maybe book 10 meetings, whereas opposed to it might take MAteo like 50 calls to book, you know, 20 meetings, which is like incredibly efficient, right? But that's one of the things that I always like think about and try to apply to daily work environment, because I'm not, when I'm calling in, I'm not expecting to book a meeting every single call every single day. I really focus on how do I get better, every week, every month, which will lead to higher conversion rate, higher efficiency, etc. But
Confidence.
exactly, confidence. And the whole thing about salespeople, especially like SDR, BDRs, being athletes, is like it's simple, right? Like we do tough work day in day out, and we may not see like those like good results immediately, because like sometimes it takes, like for me, right? Like I had an account where I cold called this guy last week on a Tuesday morning, first touch, had a good conversation, booked the meeting for the next day. He showed up, one call close. So, turnaround time from start to finish, from cold call, first touch to getting the agreement, it was like maybe a little over 24 hours. There's those calls, but for the most part, like some of my accounts, like say mid-market or like bigger accounts that are like high value to, my quota, like some of those accounts take like months and weeks, and that's just like part of the game, right? So knowing that, it's like, how do you stay consistent, how do you stay focused as an athlete? It's like it's simple, like going back to the whole great work ethic eliminates fear. We have to put in those reps, day in day out. We have to put in those reps every day, and on top of that, like do the role plays and listen to demos, like. And I think I see education very similar, or I should say educational investments very similar to financial investments. If you keep at it, if you stay disciplined and keep making deposits, that shit's gonna, grow like a monster. It's like, it's like compounding, right? It's like compound interest. So if I'm like listening to podcasts about these great minds, whether it be LeBron James or like the Trevor, I don't think I clarified earlier, but Trevor Moyd, what he does, he's a psychology mindset coach for like Russell Wilson, all the top athletes, right? So I really enjoy that, because like outside of my work, and people might think I'm like crazy, but like that's one of the things I do like as like a fun thing. So it could only help me in my work, right? I don't even think of it like that, but it's just like I've always been fascinated with like the human mind, like psychology, like what drives like certain behavior. So I really get a lot of learnings from like those like podcasts, interviews, like even like on YouTube. Like one of the things that I like to like rewatch over and over and is like Kobe Bryant talking about like what it means to be great, right? And he says, I think it's like not really complicated. Being great is being able to like inspire like someone next to you. And I really like, it really resonated with me, and I want to be able to do that like with my team, and even with you. I hope I brought that to the table, like last time we chatted, right? Like and people that I talk to actually getting something out of that, instead of just me like trying to talk and like hype people up, so I I think that's why really like we're athletes, like sales is a sport. But another interesting thing that I want to share with you guys though is like I think sales is the only sport that we don't have to be naturally like gifted or talented, like physically, or like have that gift, right? So for example, like, LeBron James, like Giannis, like these guys are like, freaks of nature. So that gives them like a way like high advantage over all these other guys. But I feel like sales, yes, I can agree that I might, have a, like natural way, like with like people. I may like know how to read the room like from an like early age, but I think a lot of things are like coachable, and you can like pick up skills as you like practice. So I think sales is probably like one of the like most like fair sports to play in. So
Definitely.
so I really like that. And I was gonna say something, but yeah, it'll come back to me. But yeah,
Dude, I love that you said that, because I'm a huge advocate for the SDR role, because I think anyone can do it. Like it's very
absolutely.
low barrier of entry. Especially if you want to start your own business one day, like hop into an SDR role like Nick, work for 2, 3 years, And after that time, you have enough knowledge to invest in yourself and just opportunities. And so
Yep.
I guess for anyone listening to this podcast, Nick, that you inspire to consider, looking into an SDR role, maybe at Service Titan, but just like changing the way they think about sales and this as a career, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I guess for anybody maybe that are just getting started in SDR roles or that are looking into it, folks that could be considering career switches, or even like SDRs, like reps that have been in the game, but maybe they feel a little confused or lost. I think it's like with any other, career path, right? I think first thing is you have to have belief, and you have to have conviction, and I think that goes for both ways. One, yourself, and two, obviously like what you're selling, product industry, right? So, and for me, like, I think it's simple, right? Like, obviously I didn't know much about this product or industry, before I joined, but it's also like, picking like the right place. It doesn't have to be every time, but if you truly want to enjoy your work and have, good energy or high energy and have conviction on what you're selling and what you're trying to do, I think it's like plain and simple. Like you have to be bought in. You have to be convinced that this is the best thing for my prospects, right? Because otherwise, like if you think, this is like a decent product, maybe, overpriced, and, competitors have a better program, then chances are
That's the case.
yeah, that's the case. And, again, that ties back to like your mindset. Like I'd say this a lot. I'm sure you've heard me say it too. Like, I feel like how you view things affects how you do things. Right. And let me say that again, how you view things is how you do things. So like if I'm, seeing, the product that I'm selling, and if I'm seeing like what we do is like, this is like whatever, this is like a 9 to 5, I don't really care, then like I guarantee you my performance like wouldn't be like where it is today, right? But I'm definitely convinced that, like product that I'm selling is absolutely a game changer. It changes like, more than businesses. It changes like my customers' lives. And I think I got the validation when I actually met these guys, met prospects at like trade shows and conferences, and then them telling me, oh, like, this product truly has been like life changing. We have more time and we make more money and we're able to like go on vacations, things like that. And those are the things that really changed my perspective. So for like reps that are currently in the role, or that are other people that are looking into it, I guess, try to, pick a good place. Like not just, I'm not saying don't pick like anything, but at least, do some research. Like, does this align with like what you want to do long term? Is this going to be a good place to learn, things like that, right? But I mean, again, you have to be bought in, because if you're not, like, you're
an uphill battle pretty much.
Yeah, and cold calling is tough, dude. So it's just gonna feel like even like tougher, because it already is tough. I think, honestly, I think cold calling, slash prospecting is probably, if not the hardest, one of the hardest things, you can do in sales, right? Because you're essentially calling into people that may or may not be thinking about, the solution that you're bringing. But it's your job to obviously, introduce yourself, try to uncover like those pain points, and getting there, it's not easy. So
yeah,
I think, being convinced and, being bought in will definitely make things easier for you and make it a little more fun.
100%, man. Thank you so much. This has been really valuable. I guess, Nick, for anyone listening out there that, wants to pick your brain, get some coaching or training from you, or I know that you're doing some consulting work as well, man, where can they find you?
I always like love coaching people, and even just like having conversations around like how to like have a good attitude and mindset, because I think because it's not sort of like a tangible thing, people like just kind of overlook it as like, oh, like mindset, whatever. But everybody talks about mindset. But I think, to me at least, I think it's very important. I think it's one of the most important pieces of, high performance. and being able to be a high performer month over month, like, you know, consistently, that it starts there, right? Having a good attitude, you know, having a strong like mindset, and also having clarity on goals, which will lead to like having desire with like, okay, like I want to do this, I want to get better. And you know, if I'm not satisfied with like where I finished last month, okay, like you gotta have the desire to like get better. Like, okay, like how do I fix this? Like what should I work on? And also be open to feedback, because chances are, you know, if you're early on in your career, like I guarantee someone else has been in your shoes. So yeah.
Everyone hit him up, connect with him on LinkedIn. He loves talking with
Yeah,
people.
LinkedIn's a good place. I'm on LinkedIn, you know, a few times a day. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's Sales Dev Squad. Please connect with Nick Kim. He's done a whole bunch of stuff for me, and I'm sure he can do a lot for you guys as well. But Nick, thanks so much for hopping on, man. We really appreciate it. And
Thank
Sales
you.
Dev Squad, we will catch you guys on the next one.